Okay, so today I wanted to talk with you about the importance of resilience and accountability. And I recognize that those are not two of Viewpoint's characteristics. But I firmly believe that resilience and accountability are essential to becoming an exceptional person. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why I think that today. So let me start off with a quote. I suspect a lot of people have heard this before. What does not kill me makes me stronger. Who's heard that quote before? Has anyone ever thought about what it means? It really neatly encapsulates what we're talking about today. And I'd like to start out by sharing with you a personal story. I lost my father 7 years ago to suicide. My father had lost his own father and his only daughter in the course of about a year. And he was simply unable to recover from what were unquestionably two really traumatic life events. He wasn't able to bounce back. But he had a great career. He was far wealthier than anyone really needed to be. He had a wonderful wife and he had a loving family. And so I asked myself, why wasn't he able to bounce back? You contrast that with my mother, who lost her only daughter and her husband of almost 50 years in the course of about 4 weeks. That was pretty bad 4 weeks for my mother. But my mother was able to bounce back. She's sad for her losses, but she continues to live her life and she's persevered. And so I asked myself, why is it that my father wasn't able to bounce back from these setbacks and my mother was? And after a lot of reading and reflection, I realized that my father had never developed resilience. At the core, his entire life, everything had gone his way. He had never really been faced with a significant adversity in his lifetime. And consequently, he had never developed the skill of resilience, and when life dealt him these two really bad body blows, he wasn't able to cope. So that's why I think resilience is really so critical. Now, I've just got it started, and I mentioned resilience several times. So what exactly do I mean by that? Well, pretty simply, resilience is the ability to overcome and move through adversity and become better. It's just bouncing back when life deals you a body blow. And closely related to resilience is this attitude of accountability. And in this context, accountability means a personal choice to take ownership of your situation, whether it's your fault or not, and to do what it takes to overcome an obstacle or a problem and persevere. So why do I think resilience and accountability are so important? Well, the hard truth is that bad things happen to good people. That's just the way life is, right? And if you haven't developed the trait of resilience and you don't adopt an attitude of personal accountability, when those things happen to you in life, you're not going to be able to cope with them. You can wallow in self-pity, feel bad for yourself, say it shouldn't happen to me, but that's not going to make your situation any better. Or you can decide that you're going to do something about it and overcome your obstacles and deal with your problems and move on with your life. I put on this slide a rhetorical question: what's the difference between an exceptional individual and an unexceptional individual? I can guarantee you that it's not luck, and it's not that nothing bad ever happens to exceptional people. Let me give you an example. This is the real-life personal story of a very famous celebrity, someone that everyone in this room knows. And this individual was born into such abject poverty that when she was young, a lot of her school dresses were made out of potato sacks. Far worse than that, starting at the age of 9, she was repeatedly raped by her cousin, her uncle, and one of her uncle's friends. She eventually ran away from home and became pregnant at the age of 14, but her son died shortly after childbirth. I don't know about you, but if I looked at that, I wouldn't say that was the start of a very illustrious life. So would it surprise you to find out that that's the true life story of Oprah Winfrey? Oprah didn't let these awful things that happened to her keep her back. She bounced back, and she is now arguably one of the most influential women in the world. She's the richest African American of the 21st century. She's got a net worth of something like $3 billion. She's winner of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and I could go on and on and on about all the things that Oprah's accomplished in her life. In my opinion, they ought to have a picture of Oprah next to resilience in the dictionary. I talked a little bit about accountability. I took this slide from what is probably one of my favorite books of all time, The Oz Principle. If you've ever heard anyone talk about above-the-line behavior, they're probably referring to this book. And the Oz Principle lays out a very simple model for personal accountability. And that's this above-the-line that you see here. And really, it boils down to 4 steps. The first step is to see it. When you encounter a problem or you encounter an obstacle, you have to recognize that you have the problem, right? You can't very well solve it if you don't recognize it. The second step is to own it. That is, you have to accept the fact that this is your problem or your obstacle. Whether you caused it or not, whether you contributed to it, whether it's fair or not, it doesn't matter. It's your problem. The third step is to figure out what it's going to take in order to overcome that obstacle or to fix that problem. And then the fourth step is to go out and do what it takes to overcome it. Right? See it, own it, solve it, do it. Very simple model, but in reality very difficult to do in practice. May just briefly mention some of these below-the-line behaviors too. Things like denying or ignoring a problem, waiting and seeing, finger pointing. These are very natural emotions, and frankly, they feel pretty good, but they're not going to solve your problems. They're not going to get you any closer to your goal, so they really should be avoided at all costs. Okay, so the $64,000 question, how do you become resilient? Well, the good news is I think it's pretty clear that resilience is a trait that you develop over time. And so I would share, I think, 3 key things to becoming a resilient person. The first one is pursue a purpose. Make your life about something. Make your life about something important that makes the world a better place, that you would be willing to do anything to achieve. And that way, when life deals you a really bad body blow, when you come up against obstacles and problems, you're going to have the motivation that it takes to overcome that obstacle. The second thing is, don't avoid failure or adversity. Embrace it. Resilience is a trait that you learn through repeatedly experiencing setbacks and overcoming them and moving on and becoming stronger. If you don't develop resilience early in life, if you don't develop that trait through repeated setbacks that you've overcome, when life deals you that inevitable body blow later in life, like my father, you may not be able to overcome it and move on. It may crush you. And then lastly, live above the line, which means, in other words, practice accountability. When you come across problems in life, when you come across obstacles, accept that they're your problem regardless of whether you caused them or not, and do what it takes to overcome them. If you follow these 3 steps, you can be like Oprah, you can be an exceptional person. Okay? Thank you very much.